Okay, my friends, I don't like to get into a subject like this without giving you other pieces of the puzzle. 4 years ago, we got secret documents that are now mainstream news and confirmed to be real, where they're training now over 50,000 preachers for gun confiscation, to tell their flocks, to go to the relocation centers, to take forced inoculations, to do whatever the government tells them, Romans 13. They're called Clergy Response Team. The Infra Guard hiring private citizens to spy on their neighbors with shoot-to-kill orders. The John Warner Defense Authorization Act, the different executive orders, all for martial law. The gun confiscation drills, you've seen all of it. We're going to put this on screen for PresentPlanet.tv viewers. U.S. Postal Service expands construction of secret rooms. Now, Steve Quayle called me this morning, and he talked about how Al Cuppet had given him the info on the secret interrogation rooms being expanded. I called Paul Watson. He did deep searches on Google, but also on other search databases, and found United States Postal Service interrogation rooms. But we have the internal blueprints where they're expanding these with these big, one-way windows. And Watson did find what my memory had pulled up, that during the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act, remember 2002, they wanted to have forced inoculation nationwide for smallpox, and it came out in news articles that, oh yeah, the feds are going to use sports stadiums and postal offices as the centers where if you refuse to be inoculated, you'll be taken and be held, but we'll also forcibly inoculate if we're given the orders at these injection facilities. And at these and then it turned out police and sheriff's deputies were the ones that were leaking the info. So we know this is real. So that's why when Steve called me, I went, yeah, no, this ties into all the info I have. And he said, listen, this isn't just Al Cuppet, who's a good source, worked with the Joint Chiefs of Staff that gave me this info. He said, I was already told this last week by one of my sources in Montana who was in one of these facilities, and they're expanding it. Now, you tie that in with all the military reports of them doing gun confiscation drills and military checkpoints in the news. They'll have these PR pieces, these acclamation pieces like, oh, the Marines were out running checkpoints looking for drunk drivers in California or Tennessee. Oh, the regular Army was out in Kentucky. Oh, the local police are training for martial law. The point is, they're getting ready to implode the economy. They've built this over the last few decades. They have the legislation introduced. They have the 10 regional FEMA governors under federal control with the National Governors Act. All this is in place, and now Steve has gotten, and by the way, we called the numbers and called the addresses, pulled up the numbers on the addresses. We're going to go through that PDF file for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. If you go to the article and link through, we have a PDF document there in the second paragraph, and we'll scroll down so they can see it, so they can actually see the diagrams in that PDF. Yeah, there you have it. Where you can see the different blueprints for these huge interrogation rooms. And what's a big concern is multiple sources say they've got the cover claiming this is for Postal Inspector criminal investigations, though no one's ever heard of it. That's the cover for building it. We know, even in mainstream articles, these are for forced inoculations and federal police interrogation. So I want to go to Steve Quayle, who is hot on the trail of this. Steve, good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Alex. The interesting thing about this story that is breaking today with you and I and others, especially many thanks to Al Cuppet, is last week I ran into a gentleman that obviously knows who I am, and he started opening up about the work he's been doing on different not only post offices, but the Department of Homeland Security facilities and federal buildings for, you're going to love this, literally silent rooms called interrogation rooms. And this guy knows what's going on, and he's a security specialist. And he said, Steve, what these guys are building are nothing more than absolutely, and he said in his words, they are rendition centers. Now, we know what rendition means, torture. And we also know the fact that based on what multiple witnesses throughout the country are saying, is everything is being geared up, and the level of not only secrecy, but of cordoning off these areas, Alex, with more guards and everything, is indicative of something that's getting really...
Yeah, now they're staffing it. That's the big concern. Remember,
right.
Bush started the secret arrest, the snatch and grab, the torture. Now Lieberman and McCain are on the news trying to pass laws, the Belligerent Act, where the Pentagon can direct citizens are secretly arrested, secretly stripped of their rights, and can be given, quote, enhanced interrogation. And then it turns out Obama overseas has been using new black sites at horse ranches and foreign post office facilities. So they love the nondescript building. They bring you in the back of a postal truck and take you into the torture facility.
Absolutely. Now, I want to read a quick update from a friend of mine. I'm not going to disclose the city. You know what it is. But just for his friend's sake, Steve, my best friend works in a major Midwest area post office distribution facility on the north side. He has spoken of this mysterious room that was described in your expose. He said it's closely guarded by the postal police and only a few management members are granted access. It's located on the second floor of the facility, and the only access is by a catwalk. I always wondered what it was about. Wait until I tell him what it is all about. He won't be too surprised because he suspected something bad was happening in there. So, Alex, this is a real-time today update from a major Midwest city, and the bottom line is that people who even work in the post offices, the average postal letter carrier is not going to know necessarily what this is for. But the idea of under the Emergency Health Powers Act, remember we were going to have to go to the post office and register.
Yeah, that was in the Denver Post. I mean, and Paul Watson has links. They were going to use it as the forced inoculation interrogation centers to see if you're an extremist. Now they admit everybody's being put on list to control this, so this fits into everything we already know. But also we know the feds admit they're growing the opium, shipping in the cocaine. They can also use these secret facilities in all the big post offices as a place to ship in their drugs and then break it up and then move it out. So it'll also be used, just like when the CIA rendition plane crashed 3 years ago with 3.5 tons of pure cocaine, it turned out that was also a torture plane. So they use these for dual use. I would imagine there's also going to be narcotics being brought through these.
Well, absolutely. And, one of the stories you're carrying today, on Prison Planet, is former CIA officials admit to faking bin Laden video. I think people better realize, Alex, where they have been dumb and dumbed down. They better allow this reality-based information to shake them up and wake them up, because the bottom line is that, ladies and gentlemen, you are, if you're listening to this program or listening to me or anybody that's out there screaming at the top of their lungs, you've already probably been categorized as a terrorist. And, Alex, when people didn't speak out against torture, and I went wild over that, so did you, I said, listen, they will not care until it's their child, their wife, their husband in those chambers. And God forbid, I hope that through the exposing of this, people start figuring it out. And listen, the only way the Luciferians can live is under the cloak of darkness, secrecy, and control. So, my hat again is off to you for putting the light on the subject matter that you're dealing with, because Alex, Steve, it's upon us now.
Well, it is. I want to shift gears just for a moment. You remember you were the one that broke the news that a group of private mercenaries run by a felon had taken over areas of Hardin, Montana, the $27 million facility. I went there. It was true and even more. Now, I was sent a photograph yesterday, and I wasn't going to cover this hour, but towards the end, I'm going to go ahead and start because I'm still doing research. It says, I saw this car on I-45 north toward downtown Houston today at about 9 a.m. Never saw one of these before. He was driving like a bat out of hell. It says State Tactical on it. And guess what? It has the Serbian coat of arms. It has a similar name to one that Hilton has used. And it's tied into Israeli defense companies, and it has the same website design and same look, but we've confirmed they do have these fake police cars now driving around in Houston, and we've almost confirmed it's connected to Hilton. We're not 100% sure, but it's the same MO, the same names. I mean, this is, and the fact that the feds haven't done anything about Hilton to begin with, this is just insane.
Well, I think, too, that people need to understand something. The information that I gave about Department of Homeland Security and others they've got to, I think every listener has got to recognize that if they don't see a policeman or a sheriff or a highway patrolman or state trooper, these guys now, under law, Alex, can put on any, if they're under the Department of Homeland Security, they can wear any one of a dozen different uniforms. They're putting them into, they're hiding them in plain sight. And again, if all of the events that are taking place concurrently don't send the biggest warning that's ever been sounded on talk radio by your program, the bottom line is that there is no more event that can take place except when they drop the hammer. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why all this information is out there. Every single politician who has voted for this stuff needs to be recalled on recall petitions immediately.
Well, let's talk about how they could roll out martial law. Notice they're talking about nuclear war with North Korea. They're talking about first strikes on Iran right as the global banking meltdown happens. We'll talk about that in the second half of the interview, Steve Quayle. But because I was interrupting some, when we come back from break, walk through what your different sources are telling you, and that's the same info I'm getting,